RockEyez would like to welcome Frank White, photographer, known as the Legend. Hey, man, what's up? What's going on?
Hey, Brian, how you been, man?
Really good, really good. You're a great friend
Good,
to me.
yeah.
Always, I call you my mentor, you know, because
Thank you.
Because you help me in so many different ways, just getting my foot in the door. And I just want to thank you personally, and I really appreciate your friendship, man.
Dude, I really appreciate it. That's a high honor, man.
Cool.
I'm glad that I was able to, like, you know, bring somebody else along that loves rock and roll and likes to photograph it. And, you know, I appreciate that a lot.
Cool. Now, you started photographing shows, I guess, around 1975?
Yeah, my first show was Zeppelin on February 12th, 1975. I was 12 years old at the time.
Wow. What kind of camera did you use back then?
I had one of my mom's Canon cameras, the ones that were, like, brand new, I think, you know.
Right. Wow.
And I took it with me. I took it out of the house without her knowing about it. I put it in a plastic bag. I told her I was going to my friend's house, and I ended up going to Madison Square Garden by taking the bus into the city.
Wow.
In New York, that is, yeah.
That's pretty cool. How did you start getting, like, you know, known, like, and getting passes and, you know, meeting bands and stuff like that?
Well, I was between 1975 and 1981. I was able to photograph many shows over the years.
Right.
Whether it be, you know, at arenas or theaters, even the clubs. And so I had enough behind me when someone wanted to know if I had Greg Lake.
Right.
And I was selling my photographs actually at a store in Bergenfield, New Jersey called Collector's World. And the guy was a writer for a local paper in New Jersey, the Sea Caucus Home News. So he asked me if I wanted to, you know, have a photo of mine of Greg Lake's in his newspaper article. I'm like, yeah, that'd be great.
Right.
So he looked at what I had and he picked one, and then it ended up being in the newspaper like the following week.
Wow.
So then after that, I was photographing, you know, one of the bands in Bergenfield, a place called the Circus, and it was Yorma from Hot Tuna.
Wow.
And I happened to call Relics up. I figured, let me just try one of the magazines, and they asked me if I had Jorma Kaukonen.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, this is crazy because I just photographed him recently. And out of all the bands I photographed over those years, they wanted Jorma. So I'm like, yeah, I have him. So they told me send some photos down. I sent them, and they chose one, and one ended up being a full page for like the November 1982 issue of Relics magazine. And then I just started to contact other publications, and I was in Guitar World, Rock Fever, Cream, Circus, Hip Parader, Faces, Rip, Metal Hammer, Kerrang, some German magazines. It just kind of like snowballed one right after another.
Right.
And to this day, I'm working with, you know, between 20 to 30 magazines a month around the world, along with book companies, documentary companies, TV shows. I'm working with, record companies, companies that do DVDs, CDs.
Wow.
Yeah, reissue CDs, box sets. So I run the gamut of, like, all the products that are out there. I don't even have to go shopping in record stores really that much because I supply them with some of the things that people buy all the time.
Right, yeah. I love when when people ask how was the show. You know, basically, if you're a photographer, you really don't get to see the show because you're looking through that little viewfinder all the time, and you're working. It's work. It's
my concentration, basic. You know, it's either you get to shoot the whole show or the first few numbers, right?
Right.
If you're a photographer, if you're a professional photographer, it's one or the other.
Right.
And so I'm a fan of a lot of bands.
Right.
And when I'm in that pit or in that crowd or photographing somewhere in that theater or arena, and I'm photographing on the band that I'm making money, you know, as my living, my concentration's on the images than the music. So you don't hear, you hear it, but you're not like paying attention. You're more paying attention to what your job is.
Right.
And so that's why, and I try to cut it where I'm able to cut it down so I don't have to be rocking with the tunes, but more like rocking with the images, you know?
Right. You always look for that
so I'm able to concentrate on my job and get that done, and then later on, you know, enjoy the rest of the show.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, what is one or two of your, you know, bands that you really enjoyed the most that you did have a chance to see?
Over the years?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a lot. One of my favorite bands to photograph was Scorpions.
Cool.
They're just crazy. They go all over the stage. You know, they pile up on top of each other. They do a lot of posing. You know, like down the front, and it's great. Every photo is like amazing.
Right.
You know, when you photograph that band.
Wow.
There's so many others, man. Kiss would be one of the other ones.
Right.
You know, their show's amazing. You know, the costumes, makeup, the fire, smoke. You know, everything that they do is amazing. So every shot again is great. You know, those I would say just off the top of my head.
Right.
Would be two amazing bands that, you know, Motley Crue's another one.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Cool.
So Rolling Stones, love photographing those guys. Those guys always had great stages and, you know, everything and stuff. So.
Right. Now, when you have to photograph a show overseas or something, is it much different?
Well, it's again, the rules are kind of like the same over here in America, and probably like in Canada and wherever. It's like the first few numbers you get to shoot,
right?
Or if you're well known, or if you're working with the festival people, or you're working, you know, with the magazine that's supplying, you know, that's supplying a lot of the photos, you know. Whatever, those are the people that kind of end up being around, like on stage or maybe in the pit, a lot longer than a lot of other people that only get to do the first few numbers. It's a crowd control. It's a control thing, and it's also like in cases of like, you know, people like if we're bothering, like we're in their way or something, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But we're supposed to be there, and but what's really crazy is if you don't understand their language,
right.
But it kind of means the same thing. I know what's going on, you know, because I've been in these pits for like since I was in the crowd since '75 to about '81, and then around '82, I would say about '82, '83 is when I started to be in the photo pits and all. So I know what it's like from both ends, you know.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I think it was at Madison Square Garden. I don't know, maybe it was Angel and Styx or whatever it was. Could have been Kiss.
I went to that show.
Yeah, it could have been Kiss, and you were in the photo pit, and I had a chance to. I had a chance to talk to you because I only.
Wait, Angel and Styx? You mean from like the late '70s?
Yeah.
Because all right, I might have been if you would have ran into me, I'd probably be down maybe like in the front area.
Right.
You know, by the pit.
Yeah. Well, you were down there. You were down there,
right?
And like you were very easy to talk to and stuff like that. And when I went back to my seat, I said, "I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy."
Really?
I swear to God.
Wow.
I swear to God, you had the long hair and stuff. I said, "I want to be that guy."
I still do.
Yeah, I know. But
dude, I keep it going, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's rock and roll. Like it just fits my style and it fits, you know, what I like to do, you know?
Yeah, you know,
so,
and like, you know.
I really appreciate that, man.
It's
really appreciate
something
that.
I never
cool.
told you, but that's that's how I felt. I want to be that guy. You know?
Wow, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, is it fun? Is it worth being?
It's amazing.
This way?
It's amazing.
It is, isn't it?
You know, you know, but people don't understand. Like, you know, I almost feel embarrassed sometimes because someone's trying to talk to me when I'm photographing, and I'm working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it happens. You just gotta like be polite. You know, just be polite and say, "Hey, I'll be with you when I'm done," or you know, come over here and talk to the side because you know, obviously, you know, they could be asking you about anything at that point.
Yeah,
you know?
That's about the only thing that you know, it don't bother me is that I'm trying to get that perfect shot. And
yeah, I know because we only have a little bit of time.
Right. Exactly.
Our job lasts like 15 minutes.
Right. Yep.
Per day.
Well, that's it. That's it. You know. So
unless you could stay in there longer, or it's a place that gives you permission to do whatever you want, or
right.
the bands, then you could do the whole entire show, and then you're really working.
Yeah. Wow. I know one book that came out called Get Thrashed.
Right.
I worked on, and you worked on. We both worked on.
You mean the DVD? Get Thrashed?
I think it was a DVD or a book, whatever it was. It was the story of thrash metal. You know?
Yeah, it's a DVD. Get Thrashed.
Yeah. So like I remember I said, damn, I got that. I didn't get to work with you, but I worked on the same thing as you did.
Oh, you got contacted by the same photo editor?
Yeah. And I said, "Oh man, I got my shit in the same stuff that Frank got his shit in." You know, and I was like, "Oh
did
man."
Did you happen to make it to any of the premieres?
No, I didn't. I was
New
offered.
York or New Jersey or Philly?
No, I was offered to go, but I just couldn't go.
Oh, you should have went, because I would have hung out. We could have taken some photos together, because I ended up going to a couple of them.
Cool. Now, what shows you got coming up that you're going to be photographing?
Oh man. Well, let's see. I'm trying to get. I think actually the first show for me would be next month in April. I got like, believe it or not, I'm trying to get into Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. Because he's in his 70s, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's a golden oldie, and I have to. I'm going to do it for Goldmine magazine.
Cool. Hey, that's.
Hey, see, Goldmine magazine.
Yeah.
And then I got like the next show after that would be Punky Meadows.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's really cool.
And then I got like Joe Perry, I think next month, and Ministry.
Wow.
And two different. It's a variety.
Right, yeah. Now,
I just don't like to keep it the same style of music. I jump from one to another.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because like when the magazine sent me places, I did from new wave to punk to death metal to black metal to whatever. It didn't make a difference.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. And so I never been to the New Jersey Pack. That's where he's playing. So I got to contact them first to see if I should shoot them there or if I want to shoot them somewhere else, because I'd rather go to a place that I get like the best availability to photograph. Because some places they want you like in the back of the room, or I've shot on the side walls of like casinos, these casino theaters.
Yeah.
And then, or they'll put you by the soundboard, or they'll put you up front. So I just want to know first before because I've never been there. I want to know first where I'm going to go.
Right. Yeah.
So that's always a good thing to do, is check out where you can photograph from.
Right.
So you know what to expect.
Yeah. When I photographed at the Wellmont, I photographed from the aisle. And
yeah. Sometimes they don't have a pit.
Yeah.
Like if they had like Slayer there, they would have a photo pit. But when I went and saw like Robin Trower there, for instance, there was no pit. You just had a photograph from the aisle.
Yeah, that's
or
what
wherever you could.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever think about coming out with your own book?
Yeah. I actually have been putting together photos, in a file for a long time now from all the different years, and I keep coming across ones that I forgot about, and like, this is a great photo, it'd be a nice full page maybe, or this could be like a 2-page looking photo. So yeah, it's in the process, and basically I'm not sure if I want to go with a publisher or do it myself. So I'm kind of working that out right now.
Right.
With that, and that's for me, I was thinking maybe for my 45th year, bring it out, or maybe for my 50th. I'm not sure yet how I want to play it, so we'll see.
Right. Now, there was going to be a book called Lemoore, the Rock Capital of Brooklyn, coming out. I think it was supposed to be coming out like 5 years ago and stuff like that. And I saw your recently. I saw your name even like in old pictures on the cover of the magazine, and now I see your name's off the cover. Can you tell me anything about that?
Sure. That's a big story. Actually, it's going on right now. What happened was I was, photographing back in the early 80s, and got a flyer. I think I was at the Palladium, some show at the Palladium.
Right.
And they were handing out these small flyer cards saying Soft White Underbelly appearing at L'Amour, L'Amour in Brooklyn, New York.
Right.
And I'm like, it's Blue Oyster Cult, and I like one of my bands from the 70s.
Right.
So I decided to go, and I took a friend with me, and we parked down the street from L'Amour, and it's kind of a shady area. I live in, at the time I was living in Bergenfield, New Jersey, so it was a lot different. There were homes, but then there were like, factory-looking building, like these factory-looking buildings that it looked weird, but in that section, but it's Brooklyn's different.
Yeah.
So we parked there, and we went to see the show, and the show like went on. It was like I think they came on, I don't know, like 1 o'clock at night.
Right.
We got out of there like 3 a.m. We go to our car. I have 2 slashed tires on the driver's side, and we're like, fuck. So me and my friend, we fixed one of the tires, and then we had to go. We went back to L'Amour because we recognized that there was a few different auto places across the street.
Right.
So I'm like, we might as well see if any of them are still around that we could talk to. And they were still, one of them I think was still open at the time.
Wow. And
we asked him if he had a spare tire. We asked him, I go, can we get it tonight if they have one? And he goes, let me see what I could do for you. So he leaves, and he comes back, and he goes, hey, this might fit. I'm like, well, it's not really a new tire. He goes, yeah, I got it off another car. I'm like, what? So the tire just basically the tire didn't fit perfectly on my car, so I had to get going. So I just had to drive real slow. Like the lugs weren't fitting perfectly.
Right, yeah.
And I was like 4 o'clock in the morning, I got to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
So me and my friend just decided to drive home. We drove home at like 30 miles an hour all the way home.
Wow.
And, we got home, I don't know, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And it was crazy. I thought I would never go back there again after that. Right. But sure enough, they had these bands that would come through there, like Y&T back then, Anvil, Raven.
Right.
They had Metallica play there, and Wasp, and all these other bands. And it was like a lot at that time. All those kind of bands were, the bands that I wanted to photograph for magazines and so forth, because those were the bands that were just happening at that time.
Right.
So I started doing that, and then a couple years in, I was photographing for, let's see, Circus at the time, Cream, Hit Parader, and one day I met this guy named Brian Muldowney, and he had a magazine called Kick-Ass Monthly.
Right.
So he asked me if I could show him some photos and work with him, and I'm like, sure. I go, where you live? He goes, I live in Long Island. I go, I'll go out and see it. So I went out to his house, and in his bedroom, we picked out photos, and through the course of time, one of those photos I shot from L'Amour of the band Slayer, Kerry King, on stage. I shot it from across the stage. I was on Jeff Hammond's side. So I was shooting across, and I got Kerry King kind of like with his eyes looking out towards the audience, but his face was more towards me, and there was like one of those road cases that was right next to him. And that photo was perfect for the magazine cover of Kick-Ass Monthly. Right. It was November of 85. And they used that road case, and they put all the other bands that were in the magazine right there. So it was as perfect as you can get a shot. And on top of that, the owner of the club was standing right behind Kerry King. Wow. So he saw that, and he decided to give me a laminate, VIP laminate. It was good for getting in the club for free, photographing any show I wanted to do, be able to go on the stage, go backstage. I had full range. Right. And I was like, this is crazy. I couldn't believe I was getting this. And I was like looking at all the lineups that was coming there. I go, I'm going to have a really good time at this place. So I became like the house photographer. Right. And at the time, Alex Kane was the DJ. After a while, didn't see him anymore. This other guy, Chuck Hay, came in. So I become friends with that guy. Really nice guy. We had a cool time together when I was photographing at the club, played a lot of great tunes, and we went on through the years. The place closed down for a while back. I think it was like in '96 for about a year or so,
right,
or whatever it was. It was a court case, and then they reopened it. And I was at the club for a few more years. And at this time, I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, you know, I work with all these book companies. I was thinking about, let me try to do a book on the Club Lemoore, but it had a few years left in it. So I was going along with it until it closed. Over that time period, I told somebody about it, and they mentioned that to Alex Kane, who was the DJ at the club back in the early days, from like '79 to like mid-'80s. So he calls me up out of the blue and asks me, I hear you want to do a book on the Club Lemoore. I'm like, yeah, I want to do a book on my photography at the club and my time when I was there.
Uh-huh.
He goes, wow, that's great. You know, we should get together, because I put together pet books. I'm like, pet books? Yeah, for dogs, cats, I guess fish. And it's a place in New Jersey that he does this at. And I'm like, and you're still DJing? He goes, yeah. So he goes, you want to put this book together? I'm like, that'd be a great idea. I couldn't believe it. He was like, fell out of the fucking sky. Wow. Literally. I never heard of his name from like the mid-'80s all the way up until that point, till 2005.
Right.
So I was go to his house, show him my photos. He started to pick out ones that looked really cool to scan, and we started to do the first process of the book. And this went on for a couple years. He got divorced. He ended up splitting up from his wife, getting divorced. We went back to doing the book, and we got a press release together, and we gave it to Blabbermouth.
Right.
And they ran a piece in 2010 about Frank White, Alex Kane, DJ, you know, from Lemoore, and house photographer from Lemoore, doing a book on the club. And so at the time, Bazillion Points wanted to do the book, but the club owner didn't give us his permission to use the name.
Right.
So we were waiting on that. And in the meantime, Bazillion Points dropped out of doing it, and they went on to other books. And this is where it gets really weird, because it was still my name's on the cover of my own book, with Alex Kane being on there.
Right.
But Alex was sort of like, now at this point, he went over the line of greediness. He gets in touch with some girl who knows a guy who runs a book company out in Los Angeles called Rare Bird Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks to Alex about this, and Alex goes ahead and signs a contract with the book company without my permission, without me even knowing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you sign a book, most times you get paid like a signing deal.
Right. And
then you get more money, you know, over time. He got paid, and I didn't know about this for weeks later, that he even signed a contract. And he goes, yeah, we're with this book company called Rare Bird Publishing. They're out of L.A. And I'm like, dude, you didn't even include me on this. How could you do that? He goes, well, you know, this happened really quick. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You have to include the person that's the book is about. But he decided to start using, like, he wanted to get the disco era in there, you know, up to the point that because I started in 1982. So it was starting to become more of like a book about the entire club history than my history with the club, even though, because I started there when it became a rock club.
Right.
And so he goes, well, you're going to have to call a publisher and talk to him. And I'm like, he never even introduced me to him. He never gave me his name or anything. So I had to find this all out on my own. I get in touch with the publisher. The guy thought, you know, like I was putting him on or something because he told me I had to deal with Alex. And I'm like, listen, his name is Tyson, right? Mm-hmm. I go, Tyson, look, this is my book. It's about my history with the club as a photographer. Alex was only there for a few years. He couldn't possibly have any information past the mid-'80s about what went on at that club. So, and I go, Tyson says to me, he goes, Alex told me that you were a contributing photographer. I'm like, no, I'm the guy.
Right.
So he's already stealing from me. He's from stealing my book to lying about what I'm involved with this book.
Right.
And then he was asking me about some bands that I didn't have. And I'm like, well, you know, there were certain bands I couldn't shoot because, like, Iron Maiden was one of them.
Right.
I couldn't shoot that band there. They didn't want to have any photos taken. The management, the band, or the club didn't want to have photos of the band in the club.
Right.
Another guy comes along, Ron Akiyama. He ends up giving Alex photos to the book. This is all in this course of a couple weeks or whatever, whenever this happened.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you doing? You're solely robbing my book, and you're also using other people's photos. He goes, well, you didn't have that band. I'm like, because I couldn't shoot them. No one allowed me to. Ron snuck in there with his camera and took photos without the band's knowledge, management's knowledge, or the club's knowledge. And now you're putting it into the book. This whole thing that we've been working on now for the last 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was. And so the publisher wanted me just to deal with Alex on this. I'm like, I can't deal with a guy who's, now trying to rob me. He's robbing me of my book.
Right.
But at that time, it was sort of like I wanted to kind of see this thing through.
Right.
And he starts advertising the book on Amazon Books.
Right.
And he doesn't use my name on the cover. He just uses his own name by calling it Lemoore, Rock Capital of Brooklyn, editing by Alex Kane. That's it.
Right, yeah.
And so I get him on for that. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I gave it to him, and they just decided to put it up like that." I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Right, yeah.
And then so I go, you have to put my name on the cover of my own book,
Right, yeah.
So he puts my name in a small little sentence under his big lettered name on the cover of the book that was on the publisher's website.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Again, he gave me some crazy, answer. And it's like, I was so frustrated with this guy. And then he starts asking other people for photos now. Right. He was putting Facebook, asking people to send in, if you went to the club, to send in your photos. Mm-hmm. And I was so annoyed by this guy, Right. I go, this book is not mine anymore. I mean, he turned it into a book with all these other people's photos, and he wanted me to sign a contract. And he wanted me to sign a contract, and it was totally unfair. It was all in his favor, even if like the book became like a documentary or one of these miniseries or like a movie or whatever. He would get all the money, and I wouldn't get anything out of it.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
It was a total nightmare. And the second contract was basically not fixed, same nightmare of a contract. So I didn't bother signing it.
Right, yeah.
And he sent me an email a couple weeks later saying that I'm not part of the book anymore.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So, and he conned all these people into believing that it was his book. He was even doing interviews. Mm-hmm. Without using my name, rollingstone.com. If you go to rollingstone.com and you type in Lemoore book, you'll read this story about Lemoore and Alex Kane. And then there's photos of me. There's photos that I shot over in the corner, and one of the photos has Ron Akiyama's photo. Right. And the reason why he stayed with this book was because he works with Eddie Trunk.
Right.
And Eddie had 2 books come out, and on the second book, Ron couldn't finish the book. So the publisher that worked with Eddie called me and said, hey, or emailed me and said, hey, can you help us out here? We need to finish this book of Eddie's. We need all these photos. So I had pretty much whatever they had on the list.
Right. And
I sold them to the company. And Ron later on never came up to me and said, hey, why'd you do that? He just decided, you know what, I'm just going to get back at Frank by invading his book. Right. But the thing was, that was Eddie's book. It wasn't Ron's photography book.
Right.
Eddie had, you know, his own photos in there and so forth, and photos, I guess, from a couple people.
Right.
And so that was his theory about being part of this L'Amour book.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out that now Ron is the photographer of the book.
Right, yeah.
However, he was giving him photos, and some of the photos that I noticed at the very end before I was out of this book weren't from L'Amour. They were from, like, the Ritz and a couple other places I never even kind of recognized because he was shooting sometimes on stage, and you could just go out and see the audience, and the whole background of the club in the photo is different from the ones that he was giving Alex.
Right, yeah.
And Alex, of course, you know, left early on, and so the club changed several times over.
Right.
And he was believing him that all those photos were from that club.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if things have changed, you know, because I hear it's like in the final processes of being, you know, made or, you know, being designed.
Wow.
And I don't know, you know, if they changed any photos around. And fans were giving them photos, but, you know, sometimes you don't know if every single photo is from that club. You take a photo, you shoot a photo, and it's dark in the background. How do you know it's from that club?
True.
You know, and so with my photos, when I was photographing on the stage, I would be lighting up the audience, and you could see where it's at.
Right.
And so there was a couple of photos of mine that I recognized that I thought were from L'Amour because I shot real tight.
Right.
It might have been from somebody else because I checked with other photos from that time period. So I had to pull a few of my own photos.
Right, yeah.
It happens because I was working with them for 10 years 10 years with the book.
Right, yeah.
So, you know, I would take out occasionally something that didn't look like it was from the club. So I didn't want to, you know, I wanted to have it, you know, just from L'Amour and no other club, like, because I shot L'Amour East,
right.
You know, the Ritz. And so if you shoot real tight once in a while, you can't tell, you know, where I forget. Remember where I shot that, you know, because you shoot hundreds of shows each year,
right?
And over all those years, after a while, you know, it's like you're still trying to remember, well, did I shoot this club or this club? So, you know, but the ones that Ron was giving them, some were like clearly not from the club, but there were others that were.
Right, yeah.
And I guess he asked another photographer at Esposito, another guy. Both these guys worked with me.
Right.
With my photo agency that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to work with Alex on the book.
Right, yeah.
And so his photo, I think, might be the cover as of this moment. But, you know, I don't know if anything will change. My photo was basically the front of the building,
right? Yeah.
Which represented everyone,
right?
And all kinds of bands because you had heavy metal bands play there, southern rock bands played,
right?
Some hardcore, punk, thrash, right. New wave occasionally. So, cool. All different types of people playing there.
Oh,
wow. So I basically have been, talking about this debacle that's been going on.
Right, yeah.
Because he can't get away with this.
True.
He's doing something that you don't do in this business is steal another person's book and make it your own and then make everyone believe that it was yours from the get-go because it wasn't, because I got proof that it wasn't.
Right.
And also there's proof out there on the internet.
Right,
if you go to blabbermouth.net, you go to 2010, type in L'Amour book, you'll see this whole thing about me and Alex.
You're right, yeah.
And that's the way I thought it was going to be in the very end, and it turned out that he's a greedy person.
Wow.
And wants to, make a bigger name for himself. He's a DJ. He wants to get other gigs, and this is one of the ways he's going about doing that. Wow. to make himself a little bit more famous. But it might backfire him. I don't know, right. But we'll see.
Wow. Well, Frank, it was good talking to you, and I wish you the best. Hopefully, you come out with your own book and blow everything away. So
yeah, it definitely will happen. It's just I'm not rushing it. I'm trying to take my time with
right.
the crazy amount of genres I have in this
right.
in this music business. So it'll come out. You'll see it one day. We'll do another interview. I got other things coming up too. We might do another interview on.
Okay, cool.
But can't really talk more about it until in the next couple months. You might be hearing from me again. Okay?
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Brian. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.